We all rely on farmers and ranchers, but farming is riskier than other businesses out there. Crop insurance helps farmers manage their risk. With crop insurance, farmers put skin in the game by paying premiums and shouldering deductibles. That keeps taxpayers from having to pick up the whole bill every time disaster strikes. Today, about 90% of U.S. farmland is insured, providing $100 billion in protection to more than 130 different kinds of crops. It's a testament to the program's success.
Thank you for joining us on Agri-Pulse.com. We're joined today by Congressman Mike Conaway, the chairman of the House Agriculture Committee during the 2018 Farm Bill deliberations. Appreciate you joining us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
First question, I'm going to read off some quotes here from mid-November, kind of in the thick of the Farm Bill debate. Right. Chairman Roberts said, "Three of us think we have a good Farm Bill, and I'm very troubled by the fact that we have an agreement among three but can't get to the fourth." A quote from you, I believe the same exact day, within a couple of hours. You said, "They've got to change their mind on stuff that is unacceptable. I've got responsibilities to act on behalf of the House and get what we need out of the bill." So how did we go from there to a signed Farm Bill into law?
Well, the pressure kept mounting, and both sides agreed. I think, at least in my side, I think the idea as well, that we were going to get to a yes at some point. And so you negotiate as hard as you can throughout that entire process. But the change in the election and or the House swapping sides in early November added a little emphasis to it. Colin's comments that he didn't want to roll this over, excuse me, to 2018. That helped as well. And so a lot of things came together to force decisions that, quite frankly, could have been made in September to finally get those made in December. And we had a bill signed, I guess, on December the 20th. So. But anyway, that's just, you're negotiating, and I was negotiating hard on behalf of the farmers and ranchers of America, that I believed, and rural America overall, that I believed it was my job to get that done. And so it just, the process worked. If you take a look at the conference report, it is a blend of both bills. Some of the things, particularly in Title I, are a reflection of the House fight that we put up throughout that time frame. You look at where we went from the Senate version, which cut money out of Title I, to the House version, to the conference version, where we actually add money to Title I and we do better for yield updates across this country. That was the House making that negotiation happen. And so, overall, the conference report negotiating process worked, and I'm proud of the bill that we got signed with the president.
If you'll indulge me in a hypothetical, had the House had Republicans kept the House in the election, do you think there would have been the same level of impetus, or do you think the fact that there was that switch in party control right around the corner really drove things?
Yeah, I don't know. That was, you could craft arguments for both sides of that. That's I'm a CPA, and I typically deal in realities versus those kind of hypotheticals. So some crafty fiction writer could weave a really wonderful story about taking either direction, but at the end of the day, we got it done.
As you look at the final bill, the final text that was signed into law by the president, when we're looking back on this bill in 20 years, what do you anticipate is the legacy language of this Farm Bill? What do you think is the one provision that really is going to jump out and stand the test of time?
I think the change in conservation title, that we moved at a direction that makes a lot more sense. We didn't get it as far as we'd like to, but it's clearly moved that direction. An emphasis on EQIP and a downplaying of CSP. I think that'll be the kind of look back piece. I think the House version, SNAP reforms, will have long legs, and people will look at that and say, yeah, those reforms did make sense in the context of trying to make the SNAP program better. Didn't survive into the final bill, but did pass the House. And the legislative history around here is that once you get something through one body or the other, then it begins to have legs for perhaps future Congresses as well to take a look and say, was there wisdom with respect to what we tried to get done in the House bill on SNAP? But I think the longer term rural America piece, you said one, and I'll throw you about 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. Once broadband is across rural America, and rural America has access to that, that will have long lasting impacts. And clearly what we did with asking FCC and the USDA to deconflict their various rural development programs to make sure they're not overlapping, making sure the resources are there to make that happen. That's going to have a long-term impact, a positive impact. Kind of like asking today, what's electricity in rural America mean to rural America? just taken for granted. If you're living in rural America in the 30s and 40s and 40s, it wasn't a fait accompli at that point in time. Well, today, rural America wouldn't exist without electricity. I think the same thing will be broadband, 20 years from now, when we've got whatever the technology available at the time has broadband access across all of our country for everybody living everywhere. That'll be an impact as well.
You mentioned the efforts that the House made on SNAP, and I wanted to ask you about that because knowing what you know now about how the final bill would end up looking, and the fact that a lot of those reform efforts would not make it into the final language, I mean, you could make a serious argument that that policy fight really slowed down the process, and maybe a final bill could have been produced before that. So knowing what you know now about the final language,
sure.
was that SNAP fight a worthwhile fight, do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. We got it passed through the House narrowly, but nevertheless it passed out. And so if you look at each of the reforms that we wanted to do, in terms of that the Senate just categorically, without cavalierly jettisoned right off the bat, without a legitimate conversation about it, those reforms, I still believe, make SNAP a better program, better for the beneficiaries, and certainly better for taxpayers as well. And so, the fight was the fight. If you're asking me to suborn my independent judgment on what we should have done, would that have gotten the bill done quicker? Absolutely. If I got elected to agree with Pat and Colin on whatever needed to get done, we could have gotten this done real quick. But that's not my job. That was not my role. I disagreed with both of them, and with Debbie Stabb and Al across, as we fought that fight all the way. And so to make the argument somehow that this kind of got done quicker if Conaway just capitulated, well, I'm not going to do that. Who would rationally think that, other than the people making the comments that somehow doing it quicker would have gotten a better bill? We would not have gotten a better bill, because if we'd have done it the way they wanted to do it, it would not have reflected the conference report and the fight that the House put up to get as good as we got.
So looking forward, I know we're kind of looking backward in this interview,
sure.
But looking forward, do you think those reforms could still have legislative legs either under your leadership or someone else's?
Well, I do. If you look at what Sonny Perdue is doing and will do with respect to the rule, the problem with the waiver law is that it's really vague, and we leave too much discretion to the administration to implement it. What we wanted to do with our House bill was to reflect the will of the people on a SNAP program, as opposed to the will of any particular administration that's coming and going. Sonny Perdue has come forward with one rule. He'll come forward with others that are reflective of what we did in the House bill, and having that legislative backdrop, the House version, underpinning that, I think will cause this process to move forward. Will continue to move forward in an appropriate manner.
You mentioned some of the agreements that and disagreements that you had with some of the other negotiators, but as you look kind of broadly at the entire agreement and the entire bill, do you think the bigger hurdles that had to be overcome were more along the lines of party lines or regional lines?
More along the lines of Senate versus the House.
Yeah.
The party issue with respect to Pat and Debbie really didn't emerge in our negotiations, because they really pretty much shoulder to shoulder the whole time, so you really couldn't distinguish that. It really was more the House against the Senate, or Conaway against the Senate, and in the whole process. But the 14 Farm Bill, you could look at some of those negotiations and argue there were some breakdowns on that. But if you look at the yield update that is nationwide and for all commodity programs under PLC, there's no regionalness to that. That's just folks being able to take advantage of the changes that we proposed and the House brought to the table, and as part of those negotiations got to in the final agreement. So probably less regional issues this time. Certainly they tried to rear their head during the negotiation, during the conversation. You'll look at the comments that were made. You can glean from that regional kind of issues, but at the end of the day, it's a lot less about regions than more about just good policy.
Speaking of the policy, it's been said pretty far and wide in this bill from a lot of people that this is not a revolutionary bill; it's an evolutionary bill, right, and makes more modest tweaks rather than wholesale changes. But the farm economy is in as bad a shape as it's been in recent memory. There's huge trade issues causing a lot of worry in farm country. There's huge consumer issues that maybe they just don't understand agriculture and farm policy. So if now is not the time for revolutionary farm policy, then when is it? I mean, why stick with the current framework and make slight changes to it rather than making wholesale changes?
Well, what's the wholesale change that didn't get made that you think needs to get made?
Well, I'm just posing the argument.
Well, I know your argument proposes that there's a better policy out there that we jettisoned or decided that, no, let's not do that good policy because it would mean too much changes. That was never the question. The question is, these are the policies, how can we make them work better? How can we make them more efficient? How can we work within the limited resources that we have? Because my deal with leadership was no new money across the board, so it had to come in deficit neutral. So there wasn't an alternative policy available to have picked from that we did say, well, no, let's don't do that because it would mean a big time change. We just looked at it and said, this policy should work. How can it work better for our producers and for rural America? And so I guess I kind of reject the premise that just because it's more evolutionary that somehow we didn't do the hard work that we needed to do. We had 119 hearings throughout the 4 years in preparation for getting this thing done. We didn't have anything that comes up that said, all right, as dramatic as an example as doing away with direct payments. When they took that step, that was a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. We didn't have anything on the plate to look at to try to compare to with what we actually wound up doing. We wanted to strengthen PLC and ARC, and we wanted to reset Title II with respect to the CSP program to move those forward. So just because it wasn't revolutionary doesn't mean it's not good policy for America as we currently understand what's happening and how we currently try to react. If you look at the vote totals, as it turns out, that says we got it right. And it also says to rural America that the House and the Senate understood just how hard it has been these last 4 years, and looking to the next 5, how hard it looks like it's going to be. I mean, no one's expecting commodity prices to get a lot better. No one's expecting input costs to go down dramatically. And so these hard times that are certainly going on, this 5-year farm bill helps set that safety net for that 5-year period going forward. But there wasn't a policy out there that would fit into your narrative that we didn't talk about or decided to not do just because it was hard. That was never a question.
So moving forward, looking ahead here as the department looks to implement the 2018 Farm Bill, anything that you plan to keep a particularly close eye on?
There'll be some things that I personally want to take, watch for. But first, Colin has said that he wants the full committee to spend a lot of time watching that implementation. I'm really glad that he's said that. It's based on his experience in the 08 Farm Bill and that kind of thing. So I think the committee's work will be terrific. But for me personally, it will be Title II, where we've modifying and moving out of CSP into more into EQIP, see how that functions going forward. On the SNAP title, we've got some program integrity improvements that we want to do, and watch those to begin to see how those bear fruit with respect to how decisions are made in that program. But looking at the full bill and its implementation, I couldn't agree more with Colin that that ought to be a good focus for the committee in 19 and 20. Mm-hmm.
And I'll wrap up with this one. It's a question that kind of came to mind based on you and I were riding around in your district in Texas here a few years ago, and one of the things you told me was that the legacy that you have as a House Ag Chair is what your Farm Bill looks like.
Yep.
And so with that in mind, knowing what this Farm Bill looks like, are you satisfied with this Farm Bill being your legacy?
Yes. I don't have any choice because I will not get another bite at that apple. But I believe so. You look at the final deal, and across the board, it is better for rural America. The SNAP changes we made are all positive. We didn't hurt the program there. But the non-SNAP titles will make rural America a better place to be. And in 5 years, history will show how it worked out, didn't work, and what impact it had. But I believe that the producers and ranchers and farmers and folks who try to make a living in rural America will be better off as a result of this Farm Bill. And so short answer is yes, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the work that was done. I'm proud of my staff, my team. I would argue that my squad was better than the other 3. They'll probably argue differently, but if you look at my team that came up with all these great ideas, who were driving force for keeping this battle going on and everything we did, proud of the effort, proud of the results, and yes, I'm proud of this bill. We don't keep time sheets, probably should have. That would have been an interesting statistic to try to monitor. But if you look at the amount of hours that my squad put in, probably a good thing we don't do time sheets, is we probably violate some EEOC rule about working folks a lot more than we should have. But the amount of effort that was put in, the great ideas that they brought forward and were able to help implement and get into the program, I couldn't be more proud of my team and that I was able to be in leadership. They made me look really good. I'm not sure how they did it. That's kind of a hard job to do, but they made me look real good, and I couldn't be prouder of it. You know, also made the comment more than one time that you really can't call yourself chairman of the House of Ag unless you've done a farm bill. And I was able to get that done with a lot of help from a lot of people to make it happen. And I just happened to be the chairman at the right time to make this happen.
And finally, your message to John Q. Producer trying to thumb his way through this farm bill and wondering what in the heck Congress has given him. Your message to the producers of this country.
Well, as always, rely on FSA and NRCS and the professionals who will help walk people through these changes and help them understand that. You know, as I'm serving on the Ag Committee and making the rounds, there's not a more dedicated group of government professionals than the people who man the posts at FSA and NRCS. They love what they do. They love their producers. They're friends and neighbors with them. And so every farm bill, if you go back and look, every farm bill, they go into this Herculean effort of trying to make sure that their producers are able to take advantage of the programs that we put in place. And I've got great confidence that any producer out there who has any kind of a problem, that their local FSA folks will go to work on their behalf. And if not, then they've got a member of Congress that they can call and start the process there.
Congressman, appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. Good to be with you.